Nyat emptiness, the core of Mahayana wisdom introduction among the many profound concepts in Mahayana Buddhism. Few are as central and as transformative as Nyat, often translated as emptiness, while the English rendering may evoke notions of nihilism or negation. In the Buddhist tradition, Nyat is neither mere nothingness nor the denial of existence. Rather, it is a subtle and liberating insight into the way phenomena exist, devoid of inherent, independent, and permanent essence. To understand emptiness is to penetrate to the heart of Buddhist wisdom, project, for it dismantles clinging, releases the mind from delusion, and opens the path to liberation and compassion. This essay explores the origins, meaning, philosophical implications, and practical role of Nyat in Mahayana Buddhism. It will examine how emptiness was articulated by Nagarjuna and the Madhyamaka school, how it connects to other key doctrines such as dependent origination, prakriti samutpada, and how its realization transforms not only individual insight, but also the bodhisattva path of compassion for all beings. The doctrinal roots of Nyatse teaching of emptiness is deeply rooted in the Buddha's earliest discourses. In the Polynikias, the Buddha frequently emphasized impermanence anicca, non-self, anat, and dependent origination. He declared that clinging to the notion of a permanent self or substance leads to suffering dukkha, while the explicit term Nyat appears less frequently in the earliest strata of texts. The principle is present. The Buddha described the world as empty of self and of what belongs to self, and taught monks to meditate on emptiness as a way of realizing the absence of inherent ownership or solidity in phenomena. In Mahayana, this seed blossomed into a fully developed philosophical vision. The Paramiti perfection of wisdom scrolls, composed between the 1st century BCE and the 4th century CE, make Nyat the central theme. These texts repeatedly declare that all phenomena dharmas are empty of inherent existence, empty of independent identity, empty of permanence. The famous Heart Skra encapsulates this teaching in the terse and powerful phrase, "Form is emptiness, emptiness is form. Form does not differ from emptiness, emptiness does not differ from form." This paradoxical formula captures the twofold insight that emptiness does not mean non-existence, but rather the absence of fixed, intrinsic being. Nagarjuna and the Madhyamaka philosophy. The philosopher Nagarjuna, c. Ebai Wushu da Lambai Wushu, CE, founder of the Madhyamaka Middle Way school, systematized the doctrine of emptiness in ways that shaped the course of Mahayana thought. Nagarjuna's central thesis is that all phenomena are empty of svabhava, inherent or self-existent nature. He argued that to imagine any phenomenon as possessing an independent essence is to fall into error. Instead, everything arises in dependence on conditions. Prakriti samutpada, Nagarjuna's great treatise. The Maglamhamaka Kluric fundamental verses on the middle way demonstrates that phenomena cannot be said to exist independently, nor can they be said not to exist. They cannot be both, nor neither. This fourfold negation dismantles all reified categories, pointing to the middle way between eternalism, believing things truly exist in themselves, and nihilism, believing nothing exists at all. One of his most cited verses is, "Whatever is dependently coarsen, that is explained to be emptiness." That, being a dependent designation, is itself the middle way. MMK 2418. Thus, emptiness is not an ultimate substance or ground, but a way of describing the dependent and relational nature of reality, dependent origination, and emptiness. To understand emptiness properly, one must see its inseparable connection with dependent origination. The Buddha taught that phenomena arise in dependence upon conditions. When this is, that is. When this ceases, that ceases. Nothing exists in isolation. Everything is interdependent. Emptiness, then, is the insight that because things arise dependently, they lack independent essence. If a flower exists only because of soil, water, sunlight, and countless other conditions, then it has no separate, intrinsic identity. Its being is relational, contingent, and fluid. This understanding dissolves the dualistic tendency of the mind to grasp at permanent identities, whether of self, objects, or concepts. Instead, one sees reality as a dynamic web of interconnection. In this sense, emptiness is not a negation, but an affirmation of interdependence. Misunderstandings of emptiness because of the term emptiness. It is easy to mistake niyat for nihilism, the claim that nothing exists or that life is meaningless. But Buddhist thinkers have always been careful to distinguish emptiness from such misinterpretations. Emptiness denies inherent existence, not conventional existence. Nagarjuna emphasized the two truths: the conventional truth, Sovdasatir, in which phenomena function and interact in ordinary experience, and the ultimate truth, Paramatha, in which those phenomena are seen to be empty of inherent essence. To deny the conventional reality would be absurd, for it is on this level that karma operates, compassion is practiced, and the path is walked. Yet to mistake the conventional for ultimate truth is to fall into delusion. In this way, emptiness is a middle path between reification and negation. It undercuts both extremes, revealing a subtler mode of understanding, emptiness and praj, wisdom, in Mahayana Buddhism. The cultivation of praj, the wisdom that realizes emptiness, is considered indispensable for enlightenment. Without this direct insight into the empty nature of phenomena, one cannot uproot the deep-seated ignorance of a deep that fuels samsara. Meditative practices in the Mahayana tradition aim to calm the mind, focus attention, and then penetrate into the nature of experience. In meditative absorption, one investigates the mind, body, and external phenomena, discerning their lack of independent identity. Gradually, this transforms perception. Rather than seeing fixed entities, one perceives processes, relations, and the fluid play of causes and conditions. This wisdom is liberating, because one no longer clings to things as inherently existent. One no longer generates attachment, aversion, or delusion. Suffering diminishes, compassion blossoms, and the mind abides in equanimity. Emptiness and compassion, one of the most remarkable features of Mahayana, is the way emptiness and compassion are seen as inseparable. At first glance, realizing that beings are empty of inherent self might seem to undercut compassion. If there is no real self, why care for others? But in fact, the opposite is true. Because beings are empty and interdependent, their suffering is not isolated but resonates through the whole web of existence. Recognizing emptiness dissolves self-centeredness, revealing the non-duality of self and other. A bodhisattva, realizing emptiness, does not retreat into detachment, but devotes themselves even more fully to the alleviation of suffering. Compassion flows naturally from wisdom, just as wisdom deepens through compassionate engagement. The practical role of emptiness for practitioners. Emptiness is not merely a philosophical abstraction, but a lived reality that informs daily practice. Contemplating emptiness loosens the grip of ego, the constant tendency to solidify I and mine. It reduces the intensity of cravings and aversions, allowing greater peace and clarity on the bodhisattva path. Emptiness protects practitioners from attachment even to spiritual attainments. A bodhisattva cultivates virtues like generosity, patience, and diligence, but does so without clinging to the idea of I am giving, I am patient, or I will gain merit. This is called practicing the perfections promise. With the wisdom of emptiness, it ensures that practice remains selfless and unbound by subtle forms of ego. Meditations on emptiness can take many forms. One may analyze the self, seeking to find whether it exists in body, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, or consciousness. Finding none that can serve as a permanent self, one recognizes its emptiness. Similarly, one may examine external objects, reducing them to parts, conditions, and causes, until their lack of inherent essence becomes evident. Such contemplations gradually reshape perception. Emptiness in Zen and Tibetan traditions. Different Mahayana traditions emphasize emptiness in distinctive ways. In Zen, the realization of emptiness is often expressed in the language of direct experience and paradox. Zen masters urge students to see their original face, or to recognize that the ordinary mind, when freed of grasping, is itself Buddha. Emptiness here is not an abstract philosophy, but the immediate clarity of mind beyond conceptual grasping. In Tibetan Buddhism, especially in the Gelug school, scholars have developed detailed analyses of emptiness based on Madhyamaka reasoning. Debates, analytical meditation, and textual study are combined with tantric practices to cultivate a non-dual awareness that recognizes emptiness, inseparable from luminous awareness. The union of emptiness and clarity is said to be the mind's deepest nature. Emptiness and everyday life, though profound. The insight into emptiness is not reserved for philosophers or advanced meditators alone. It has practical implications for ordinary life. For example, when one recognizes that emotions, such as anger or desire, lack intrinsic substance, that they arise from conditions and pass away. When those conditions change, one becomes less enslaved by them. Similarly, conflicts and attachments that once seemed absolute are seen in a new light. Relationships, possessions, and even identity itself are understood as fluid and impermanent. This can bring freedom, flexibility, and compassion into daily interactions.